Marc the Shark MMA Show.
Hi guys, this is Marc the Shark Retorto, and welcome to the Marc the Shark MMA Show live on Twitch. I appreciate you guys keeping up and watching me. Make sure you follow. If you happen to have a Amazon Prime account, you can actually subscribe for free. And don't forget to follow me on my social media pages. The Marc the Shark MMA Show on Facebook, Marc BJJ Fighter on Twitter, and Marc_Retorto on Instagram. And again, it's Marc with a C and not a K. And also don't forget to go to the website, MarcTheSharkMMAShow.com, where you can make a donation to help support the contest. And you can also get t-shirts and hoodies, kind of like this one that I'm wearing here. Not too shabby, right? And also don't forget that me and my daughter's got books that we have both written. Hers is called the Invisible Girl series. Mine, I have two. One's called The Cabal, The Saga Begins. And my second book, which is out right now, is called Marc is the Vampire. It's the first book in the Dark World Chronicle series. So check it out at www.retortofamilybooks.com. All right, guys. When we come back, we'll start the show. I am sure you're going to love it. This week's episode is great. Make sure you follow me every week on this channel on Saturday. And don't forget that I also have a podcast, the Marc the Shark MMA Show, which is available on Podbean.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Defense Soap. Defend what you have built. Save 15% with the code Marc the Shark MMA Show, used by all jiu-jitsu and MMA athletes to prevent skin infections. This podcast is also brought to you by Audible. Go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA Show, and you get a free audiobook when you sign up for a 30-day trial. This podcast episode is also brought to you by Retorto Family Books. If you're interested in great books for your children to read, get books by Christina Retorto. And if you're interested in action, thriller, suspense books, you can get The Cabal, The Saga Begins, or fantasy books like Marc is the Vampire, both written by your host, Marc the Shark Retorto. Again, go to www.retortofamilybooks.com. Also, do not forget to go to the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast website, the shop for our merchandise. We got t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and even mugs. Anything you can want with the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast name on it. And also, please do not forget to go to our website where you can make a donation to support the podcast. All you have to do is click on the donation button. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Marc the Shark MMA Show. And today we got a very special guest. Todd Atkins is on the show from the Todd Atkins Show podcast. But before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that if you're into reading a good book, you can pick up my Cabal, the Saga Begins. This one over here at my website, www.retortofamilybooks.com. You get a signed autograph copy for $8. And then the other one is called Marc is the Vampire. You can get it at the same website, or you can get them at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And now we have our guest. Hey, Todd, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
All right. Oh, man. Busy weekend, right?
No, not too bad.
Man, so where are you from, Todd?
I'm originally from Oklahoma, but I've kind of bounced around. I lived in Saudi Arabia when I was a kid from 80 to 88. And then I went in the military. So I went in the military in 95. And basically from 95 to 2005, I was in the military, and I was in Hawaii and Japan. And then when I got out of the military, I stayed in Hawaii until 2013. So I went to college in Hawaii too.
Oh, okay. That's great. Oh, you went to college in Hawaii?
Yeah. I had been in the military in Hawaii and Japan, so I was pretty familiar there. And, I got more money on my GI Bill in Hawaii too, so kind of stayed there.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's better than Jersey. I went to school in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
man. Yeah. So give us a little bit more background on yourself. I know you got your own podcast, and you talk. I see you interview mixed martial arts, aka MMA fighters like myself. So how'd you get into podcasting? How'd you get into the realm of mixed martial arts? Just give us a brief overview of your background.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, the first time when I lived in Saudi Arabia, I was kind of exposed to like the old kung fu movies from Hong Kong, like the Shaw Brothers films, like Five Deadly Venoms and Shaolin versus Wu Tang, these different kind of kung fu movies, because Saudi Arabia had like one television channel, and
Yeah,
it would have different programming throughout the day. And I think it might have been Thursdays where they had the Black Belt Theater, which was the last program of the
I
night.
was gonna say that. Yeah, when I was I'm like right now I'm in northern New Jersey, but when I was a kid, I lived in South Central Jersey, and we used to get the channels from Philadelphia. So you would have Kung Fu Theater and you had Black Belt Theater. So yeah, I remember the Five Deadly Venoms. I was into all that stuff, spending my Saturday afternoons watching all that. It was great.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, I had a friend who he was kind of a street guy, but he had rented UFC 2 on VHS, and he told some of the other guys that kind of hung out in this group of people that he thought it was pretty cool. I don't think he was happy that Hoist Gracie had won it. He didn't really feel that way of fighting was necessarily real street fighting or whatever you would say. But
Yeah,
he thought it was a pretty cool concept. He kind of told us it was real fighting. So I went and rented it maybe a week after he had told me. And yeah, I mean, I started watching those. I watched with my father. And when I graduated high school, I went to Hawaii, and Hawaii had a lot of fights. I saw Chemo fight Brian Johnston there. That was the first event I saw there. I took the bus, when I just got there because I didn't have my car, and I went to Blaisdell Arena, which is kind of an arena there, and I was looking at the posters, and they had a poster for Ultimate Explosion is what the show was called.
Oh,
And the
really?
main event was Chemo versus Brian Johnston. Chemo Leopoldo fought Hoist Gracie in UFC 4.
Yeah. He did a couple MMA fights after that, and then he
Right.
kind of faded. He even came out with his own instructional VHS tapes back. I mean, we're dating ourselves. To the new kids, they probably don't even know what VHS tapes are. But yeah,
Right. So, when I saw the show, and then I went to get a tattoo like the next day at this place called Skin Deep, which is a famous tattoo place in Waikiki. And he came in there, Kimo walked in there maybe halfway
really?
into it. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And so that kind of, Hawaii had a big fight scene already. It wasn't big in terms of, I mean, they had shows, the people doing it, the community was small, but it was
Yeah.
popular.
Was it
But
the
everyone,
Super Brawl there?
yeah, I mean, I met TJ Thompson. I trained with TJ Thompson in his garage and in his gym that he opened in 2008. He was the promoter, Super Brawl. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I know TJ Thompson well.
yeah.
And then in
Those,
Japan, obviously, I
yeah.
was there 2002 to 2005. So right, like the height of Pride and K1. So I
Oh,
got
you
to,
were in Japan actually?
yeah,
Ah, that's like one of the places. That's like like you got your bucket list. That's like on my bucket list. I want to go to Japan. Actually, I like to see all the Far East. Being a martial artist myself, I like to go back and visit the roots where it came from. But Japan's definitely on my bucket list.
yeah,
Yeah. So
especially at that time because it was like the
yeah,
height of the popularity of MMA in Japan.
yeah. I mean those arenas they had. I think those would be equivalent to like football arenas, if I'm not mistaken. Right? They held like 30, 50,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
I'd say Tokyo
But
Dome is comparable, yeah. Saitama Super Arena, perhaps a little bit smaller in Tokyo Dome, and then you had like Yokohama Arena. They did some other shows at those locations like Pride did. And they did one outdoor show in 2002, the Dynamite show, where Bob Sapp fought Noguera. So that was a soccer stadium, yeah.
Yeah. Damn, man, Bob Sapp. Yeah, for those who don't know, if you really want to like go back and watch like the golden days of MMA other than the UFC or Pride, I highly recommend getting the VHS tapes, or if they convert them to DVDs, the Super Brawl, because you had some sick ass fights on those. You would have the guys from the Lions Den, like before they. I don't know if it was before or after the UFC when they started. I think it might have been around the same time. Um, so you would have Ken Shamrock's brother, Frank Shamrock, um, and he fought and he lost to a guy, something, I forget his name, something Machine. But they had some really good fights. But you had a lot of members of the Lions then and there, and then they had some great Muay Thai kickboxing matches in between them. And you would have, I don't know how these guys took it. They would get kicked in the throat. I mean, this like wouldn't even phase them, you know. And yeah, so I actually just cleaned out my closet over there. I have like stacks and stacks of VHS tapes from Pride and Super Bowl. Some I bought, some I actually would record because my friend would have like a black box to get the fights kind of, on the down low, and he would hook up his other VCR, or I would get them from my jiu-jitsu instructor. He'd be like, "Hey, you guys want to watch Pride?" And I don't know. He always had a money-making scheme, gave me $100.
Yeah, a lot of guys were trading tapes back then, so I was involved in that.
And then whatchamacallit, there'll be like a music store that would sell videos too. I just can't think of the name of the store. They would have it in a mall by my house. And so you'd be able to pick up, anything that you missed back then in that store. I can't think of the name of it. Fry, I think, or something. I think they're still around, And then speaking of the old days, Dan Murgliata, the UFC referee.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if he watches or listens to the show, but I used to actually work out with that guy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he used to have a school in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and at the time I switched jobs. I couldn't go to my normal. At the time, I was going to a school called Martin's Karate, and that was when jiu-jitsu was just starting up in the East Coast area. So I was studying jiu-jitsu from my karate instructor who was learning it. So we were just learning jiu-jitsu as well. But my schedule changed at work, so I couldn't make his classes. So the only one I could make was dance. So he had a school. He doesn't have it anymore. I think he's the Muay Thai instructor at Henzo's school in Homedale, New Jersey now.
Mm.
So, but it was called Bama. So it was more like shoot fighting. I don't know if you remember the. So it was like a cross training. You would do Muay Thai, you do Jiu-Jitsu, and then he would kind of have his own MMA events at a local high school. And in fact, I actually got a picture up with me in Henzo Gracie. I actually met Henzo Gracie there. Yeah, some good times back then, And then I got to hang out after the fights. We would go into the city and hang out with Henzo students. There's a lot of his guys like Matt Serra's brother, used to compete. I think Matt was just. He wasn't in the UFC at that time, but he was at the cusp, because the UFC, I think, was just starting to grow, but it wasn't as big as it is now. It was before The Ultimate Fighter or whatever. So he was doing a lot of ring of cage combat, local fights, and but his brother would go into these Bama tournaments. So that's how I know them. And yeah, it was fun back then. The old days. So then give us a little bit about your podcast. How long have you been doing that for?
I started like maybe January 28th, I think was the first episode I did this year.
Oh, this year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, it's better later than, you start than not start, right? So what made you start your own podcast?
I mean, I used to listen to a lot of them, and and I was like, it was something I wanted to do, but never really got around to doing.
Yeah.
Because I have met a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of people that are on my show are people I either know or know of, people that I know other people through. So, yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people during those times. So it was kind of easy for me to get people on to do episodes for the most part.
Now, did you do a lot of like amateur fighters or professional fighters or mixed bag or?
I'd say primarily pros. I haven't really talked to any amateurs. It's mostly
Oh,
been all
really?
pros. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Like I've had a couple of UFC fighters. I had Sam Alvey. He was on a few weeks ago. He just fought in Abu Dhabi not too long ago. I had Steve Berger, who was an old
Hmm.
veteran fighter with 50 fights. He's fought in everything: Bellator, UFC,
Yeah, I
um,
remember him.
Bow Dogs, whatever. Go Dog. I don't know. It's like some event they had in Russia. I mean, he's done. He's done it. He's done it all. And then I Barb Hanacek, who was on the Ultimate Fighter. I think she was the first Invicta flyweight champion. But yeah, I usually do a lot of amateur fighters because I do my postings on social media. It helps them out, gives them a little bit of exposure. I'd like to get some more professional fighters on there, but I guess I don't know. Maybe they just don't hang out as much in the Facebook forums like the rest of the guys do.
I mostly have like guys from old school. I mean, I might do some new school people, but I've been kind of keeping that theme, like people that were around and even, whether it's a promoter, a fighter,
Mhm.
or somebody who's involved in like journalism,
Oh
it was
yeah.
all, yeah, I've been kind of hitting all the different aspects, so to speak.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I
Mhm.
had forget the guy's name. I had an MMA journalist from MMAfreaks.com on my show. He was pretty interesting. And then I get some professional fighters, but they're not really well known. I had a guy, Leo Pla. He's actually, I think, on a film now that's on Netflix. I just can't think of the documentary, but he's had like 50 fights too.
Mhm.
He does that bare knuckle fighting that you probably see. I haven't paid for any events, but I see the clips for it on YouTube. He's done
Yeah, I
that.
had
He's
Sean Wheelock on
kickboxing
my
now.
show. He's pretty heavily involved with Bare Knuckle FC.
Oh, who's
He
that?
was with Sean Wheelock. He was one of the
Oh, okay.
announcers for Bellator originally, like color guys. But
Yeah, 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 yeah.
he's one of the primary guys behind bare knuckle fighting. And they have a lot of events in Kansas, which is where he lives. So he's been pretty heavy behind the scenes as far as getting that stuff approved in places like Wichita. They have a
Yeah,
lot of events in Wichita because of that. So he's been pretty heavy behind the scenes with bare knuckle.
yeah. Now, do you still train yourself or no?
I was until a couple of years ago. I got married, I got a house and stuff, so I wasn't training as
Responsibilities.
much, but I was training quite a bit. I was training at Triton Fight Center, which is a place here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I've been training off and on, but kind of once I started the podcast, I was more focused on that and my house and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, do you find like how often do you do you have a set schedule with your podcast? Do you do like just on Saturdays or Sundays, or you just whenever you're ready to pop it out?
Yeah, whenever people are free. Yeah.
Okay. And then do you stream live, or is it just on like live like in video format, or is it just like on a podcast recorded before you
I just
post?
do the podcast and then I put it on YouTube after also.
Oh, okay. Okay. In video and audio format, I guess, then, like YouTube,
Yeah.
or do you just put the banner up and have the audio file running?
No, I have the video.
Oh,
I
okay.
the I mean I've done like I think 50 episodes or close to that, but I only started putting maybe the last 5 on YouTube or so, 5 or 6.
Oh. So you started January this year and you're up to episode 50?
Yeah, I've done a lot already. That's why I
Yeah,
said I
man. I
don't
was
have a
gonna say,
schedule.
I'm doing the math in my head. That's a lot.
Yeah, I've just been I try to do one a week
Eh,
at least, but sometimes I'll do like 2 in a couple of days and I'll just put them up.
wow. Yeah. Usually I mean, for the guys who are watching this that know or may not know, like I got this live show. Although sometimes they may not be live, they might be pre-recorded and shown on this channel. and then on my website. So like I'm streaming like this one episode now, streaming live on Twitch, and then it's on my website. But then Sundays I release my podcast episode. So sometimes what usually happens is if I get a feeling that the guy doesn't have a good internet speed, I might just pre-record it. You know what I mean? And then, or sometimes people don't want to do video, so then I just do the audio. Sometimes I just do fight recaps with a couple of mixed martial art friends that I have, and then I just take it from there. But I usually I try to stay consistent with my episodes. Podcast episodes on Sundays, and then the live show here on Saturday. Unless there's a big fight coming up, then I try to do my fight picks, and then I'll release it a couple of days before.
Yeah, I did some shows like that, but I don't know, because a lot of people do like UFC pre-fight, post-fight, so I just kind of stopped doing it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good though. I mean, I think I don't know if you notice. Like sometimes I notice when I do it by myself, I see my audience grow. Whereas sometimes, as opposed to interviews, I don't know. Maybe it's because I did so many interviews for so long. I would say I think I'm a little bit over 2 years doing this now. I think the first year was just all interviews. So I guess I don't know. People just like the discussions better. Like I don't really do solo. So I've actually just done a few solo episodes myself, but mostly it's with like another MMA analyst or like an interview like I'm doing here with yourself. Now, getting back to you though, so what martial arts did you study? Where was it, like boxing or Thai boxing or?
Oh, I did boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. I mean, I really wasn't training a lot in Hawaii when I first got there because I was on some submarines. You can see I have a picture of a submarine behind me. Yeah. So I was on submarines. I was underwater quite a bit, like my first few years in the military. And when I went to Japan, there were a couple of Japanese wrestlers that taught guys on the base for free. They were using the high school mats. One of them was Joji Miyabe, who was at the time, I think I want to say the number 3 Greco wrestler in his weight class in Japan. He worked on the base. And Takashi Noda, he was from Kaguchi Dojo, so he trained guys like Takanori Gomi as a high school kid, Maha Sakurai. He was probably, man, I want to say he was probably in his 50s, but could still wrestle really well. And he still wrestles with guys to this day. He's still wrestling with guys over there. So, and he's like probably in his 60s, or close to 70. But yeah, so those guys would train guys on the base for free 3 nights a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a lot of wrestling, and then I trained at Rodeo Style Gym, which was near Yokosuka Bay. So for guys that are familiar with that gym, like the Kotani brothers that competed in Zest, ZST, they were kind of like the head guys of Rodeo Style. And I also trained with Kid Yamamoto some. I knew Ensign from, his brother Egan in Hawaii. So, yeah, when Ensign opened the Purebred Tokyo, which was, and you can listen to this on my podcast because he did it. We talked about it. But when he opened it, a friend of mine, Ryan Bowe, I got him a job at Purebred Tokyo. So it was him and Kid Yamamoto that opened that gym. So I would go there from time to time too. It was a little bit further away from where I lived. I had to take the train kind of far to go there because in Tokyo. But yeah, I spent time around Kid Yamamoto quite a bit, here and there. So yeah, that was interesting. He was a pretty big star. That was maybe a year before he really took off because he was still in Shuto, but it was already starting to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, do you speak Japanese because you live there, or just a little bit? I'm assuming you had a little bit.
I was studying Japanese the whole time, but I mean, I don't speak it fluently, no. But yeah, I knew a lot of Japanese words. Yeah, for sure.
Now, would you be able to read the Japanese writing?
No, like that. It's harder, actually. I would say from people I've talked to pick up the reading. So Ryan Bowe, he lived there. Ryan Bowe was a Shuto fighter who had lived in Japan. and
Okay.
he helped me a lot. So, like I had a trash schedule in my neighborhood. He came and kind of deciphered it for me because certain days you could put out certain trash, and you had to use see-through bags. So, like when I first got to my neighborhood, they kept bringing my trash back to my house because
Okay.
I didn't have it in see-through bags, or I was putting the wrong trash in it. Because you could only put each day, like food one day, glass one day, grass one, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta admit though, like I don't know what the what the words mean, like when you see them in writing, but they do look pretty cool. You know,
Well, it's kind of confusing because they have like three different types of writing. They have the hiragana and
kanji is
katakana.
what it's called.
Well, they have
Right?
three of them. They have hiragana, katakana, and kanji. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, see, I know it as kanji because I used to work for a Japanese company
Yeah.
years ago, and so I
Yeah, so
always
sometimes you'll
knew it
see
was
all three
kanji.
together, in the same writing. So you got
Wow.
to know all three of them if you're wanting to read.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that. I mean, I know like in certain Asian countries, like I think it's China, they got it. You just think it's what they speak is Chinese, but they got different dialects. There's Cantonese, Szechuan, and I forget what the other ones are, but
Right.
there's so
So
many.
each
Huh?
kanji has its own meaning, but
Yeah.
hiragana and katakana are more like if you put them together, they'll form a word. If you put
Oh,
a few of them together, so it's not the same.
wow.
Kanji has a meaning, each kanji, but hiragana and katakana by themselves do not.
Wow. Yeah, I always find that I always found that fascinating. Like especially like the black belts when they get the writing on their belts. I'm like, oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you were over there watching the Black Ball and Kung Fu theaters, you watched the. I'm sure you were probably older when you went to Japan, but did you watch the ninja movies as well, like Revenge of the Ninja?
Yeah, when I was younger, I watched the Sho Kosugi films. He
Yeah,
was one of the
yeah,
guys who was common in it, and like Mark Dudikoff. I don't know if you remember him. He was like an
yeah,
American ninja. Yeah. So yeah, of
yeah,
course, I saw those.
yeah. I was more into the Sho Kosugi than the
Mhm.
American Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, Nine Deaths of a Ninja, Pray for Death. Yeah, I used to watch all that stuff. I guess I don't know if you want to call me a martial arts nerd, but I guess you could kind of call me that or whatever.
Yeah, I
Now,
think Japan would be a good spot for you. Probably. I think that's kind of like Mecca for Muslims. I would say Japan is that
oh really?
equivalent for people that are into martial
Oh,
arts.
oh, oh,
If
yeah, yeah,
you haven't
yeah,
been to Japan, it's you haven't really done it yet. As far as
yeah,
the ultimate experience. Kind of
yeah,
like Muslims who've never been to Mecca, They
yeah,
all
yeah,
want to go,
yeah,
but not all of them have been.
yeah. Now, when it comes to martial arts training, like which one did you prefer? Did you prefer the striking or the grappling more?
No, I didn't have a preference. I mean, it's all interesting. It's all fun. I think it just depends on, are you having fun training? I wouldn't say
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time that I trained, everywhere I trained was necessarily fun. Some places were more fun than others, but
yeah,
I think all the elements are interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I was younger. I mean, I always, was busy with work. In my 20s, I used to have like a long commute to work, so I used to always do my primarily longer workouts on the weekend. So I used to get up when I first got married up here before I had kids. I used to Saturdays get up at 9:30 to go to a boxing gym in upstate New York, and then do that for a few hours, to drive all the way down to I think my instructor had it. I think he just moved to Fairlawn at that time, so I was doing jujitsu there. But yeah, man, it was like 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday. I think that's probably why I got hurt, because I think I trained even I. It's better, I think, if you train an hour a day than, let's say, 3 times a week, 2 or 3 hours at a clip. I think because your body gets, I think it's better, like you heal more. I think if you do shorter periods than if you do like one big longer session. Guided.
Hmm. I think it depends on the person, maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, Some
if
people
you're
I
doing
know
3 hours
prefer to do
a
it that way.
day, 5 days a week, I think it's different than if you're just doing it like twice a week or 3 times a week. You know. And then there was one point I was doing it before I got married. I used to work out either at 10 or 11 a.m. till 2 o'clock. That was probably mostly like stand up, but then we got into jujitsu, and then I just kind of stuck with the jujitsu. So then it was a little shorter, but yeah, man, it was long training sessions back then.
Yeah, I
For a
trained with
while.
Barrett Yoshida for about 5-6 months. Barrett went to Abu Dhabi finals maybe 2 or 3 times, early Abu Dhabis. And he was the best grappler in Hawaii when he lived there, at least on Oahu. And he had opened a small gym, like I think it was kind of like a community center, and he had like some mats he had put out, and he only had a handful of students. This was out in Eva Beach, so it was quite a ways away if you wanted to go out there. And I think that was the most fun I had training, because Barrett was such a phenom, but his just he could roll forever. So we had some pretty long practices, and he had a certain amount of finishes he wanted to get before he would leave. So if he got him at 9:30, maybe we could leave at night. If he got him at 10, we'd leave it, so yeah, but I think that was a lot of fun, because he loved to do that stuff. So I think when the person loves doing it, it kind of comes out in everybody else.
Now, when you were in Hawaii, did you ever like get a chance to meet like BJ Penn at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you see BJ Penn around. He was on Oahu a lot too, because I trained with his brother Jay Penn. Like the last 2 years I was on Oahu. BJ opened a UFC gym in a place called Kaka'ako, which is kind of between Waikiki and downtown Honolulu. Like people get confused. Downtown Honolulu is actually before Waikiki. So right in that.
I haven't been to Hawaii yet either.
Yeah. So in between the two is a place called Kaka'ako, pretty big area. And he opened like a UFC gym. BJ Penn was the name. Yeah. So he was there a lot, and his brother taught there. His brother taught jiu-jitsu there every day, Jay Penn. So he has several brothers, and Jay Penn was one of them. He lived on Oahu. So and BJ would come and teach there from time to time. He'd drop in and teach. He did a seminar at TJ's gym when I was training with TJ. So I rolled with him a couple of times, but not a lot. But yeah, I rolled with him maybe 2 or 3 times.
Now, was that with the gi on, or was it no gi when you rolled with him?
I think the first time was gi in 2008. The second time was no gi.
Yeah. How did it feel to roll with him?
Well, I mean, I'm not on his level, so it's
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I remember like the first time I rolled with him, I think he was just trying to like stay on top to show, just do what he wanted on top. While you're trying to sweep him, but he was just kind of hovering. Yeah, he wasn't really trying to dominate, but he was just kind of staying where he wanted to stay, kind of thing, and kind of locking in his position. The second time was no gi, and I don't recall. I don't remember exactly what. It's hard for me to remember specifically, but I do remember the first time because I was the first guy he went with. So yeah, it's kind of vivid in my memory.
And he already competed at the UFC at that time, so you already knew who he was and everything.
Yes.
Yeah,
he was already kind of legendary before he competed in the UFC, because it was Barrett and BJ. Like Barrett was the king of grappling on Oahu, and BJ was kind of the king of grappling on the Big Island.
Yeah.
But and BJ competed against Barrett, and he beat Barrett, in a grappling tournament. He passed and mounted him, and his mount is inescapable. Once he gets the mount, no one can get out of his mount. So he was able to pass Barrett and mount him, and he won. He beat Barrett on the points, and so BJ was kind of like, everyone knew Barrett was better than everybody else on Oahu, other than Egan. Egan and Oy, but Barrett was competing a lot more. So of the new guys coming up, everyone knew Barrett was better than everybody of the new guys, but they knew BJ was probably better than he was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the first American black belt world champion. Like, I mean, he was the first one to ever do it. So
Right, but
else
Egan was
at
the
that time
first one to ever
Brazilian.
do it at any belt. Egan won at blue. Before BJ ever won at purple, Egan won the world at blue. So actually, it was Egan who was the first, and then
Oh,
BJ.
really? I never knew that.
Yeah, but BJ is the first at black belt. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, I kind of get annoyed when they say that. They're like, oh, you're like, if you tell them like you're a blue belt world champion, or they were like, God, it doesn't mean anything. But let me tell you something. Even if you're a white belt world champion, that means something, because for guys who don't know who don't compete in jiu-jitsu, if you look at the amount of people who compete, I mean, unless you're at a 250-pound level, right? Because then there's less competitors because of the heavier guys. But if you're at 150, 170, to be a white belt world champion, you got to go through 100 people. There's like 100 or 100 or more people in the brackets for that. So, I mean, to me, that means something. If you beat, so that means you're beating 30 guys just to get the first place gold medal. So, hats off to anybody who can do that. I wouldn't be able to beat that many people in a single day, even in my 20s. Yeah, unless it was, significantly a lot better than them. But, yeah, world champion's a world champion, just to get that particular level, you know. So anyway, so what's your next podcast episode coming out? So you got one coming out this weekend or next week?
I'm gonna do one with Dennis Kang tomorrow. You remember Dennis Kang fought in Pride and UFC Super Brawl?
Yeah, I saw your post on Instagram. I thought that guy looked familiar.
Yeah.
He still looks that good? Because I thought it was like,
He's still in.
I thought it was. I'm like, I figured he'd be a lot older than that.
Oh, that was one of his fighting pictures, but yeah, he still looks pretty much the same.
I'm saying, I mean,
yeah, if you look on his page, he's still in shape. Yeah,
he's probably better shape than me. But I figured the guy would have like some gray hairs by now. He's older than me.
I think he's still got the shaved head.
We're all gray facial hairs like I got, but he's definitely older than me. But yeah, man, that's great that you got him on there. Great. So that's coming out next week, right? You said?
No, I'll release it tomorrow. I do them and I release them. I don't really do a lot of editing and that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then for people who listen to your podcast, it's the Todd Atkins Show. That's his name of it, right? The Todd Atkins Show?
Yeah, Todd Atkins Show. And then I have it on Instagram. It's _Todd_Atkins_show. And also on Twitter, I have a Twitter, Magnum_TA76. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm assuming your podcast is on Spotify. I know it's on Anchor because I saw it there. So he's on Spotify. He's on iTunes. Are you on iHeartRadio too?
Yeah, I got it on everything. Spotify, Anchor, iHeartRadio. Everything but Twitch, I suppose.
Okay. All right, everybody. So if you guys want a little variety in podcasting when it comes to mixed martial arts, and listen and get interviews and different insights on the other mixed martial artists, other than the ones that I interview, check out his show. It was great having you on the show, everybody. Continue to watch the show. Same time, same channel next week. This is Marc the Shark signing off. Everybody have a great, safe weekend.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Yep.
All right, guys, we'll be right back, but first a word from our sponsors.
During World War II, I was in prison in a Nazi camp. I died there, or so I thought. Instead, I became a creature of the dark world. Now I fight to protect my daughter. I am Marcus the Vampire. The book is now available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com and RetortoFamilyBooks.com.